technically, yes, your seat is following the rhythm of the walk, but if I go too like loosey-goosey on him, or if I get too fast with my seat, like if I start kind of doing too much with him, then his walk gets tension in it, right? You could see how he started like swishing his tail. But if I keep the rhythm of the walk a little slower like this, then it helps him to stay relaxed and not want to jig. Hello, in this video I'm talking about what to do when your horse jigs. And jigging is so frustrating, especially when you're in the horse show and you know that if your horse starts jigging that you're going to get a very bad score on your walk, and your walk is always a coefficient. Today's YouTube video is proudly sponsored by Correct Connect. Correct your position to develop balance and connection with your horse. Correct Connect offers a wide array of training aids to enhance the balance and comfort for you and for your horse. Improve your riding and improve your horse with Correct Connect. Visit www.ridecorrectconnect.com. So it's hard and it's frustrating what to do when you feel that tension come up and when you can't keep your horse at the walk. If you don't know what jigging is like this little trot. So jigging is basically when your horse is breaking into the trot, anticipating the trot, and you can't keep them in the walk. Mercurio here is a PRE and he likes to jig. I think it's very typical of this breed or like the hotter type horses. So let me know what breed your horse is and if your horse likes to jig. I'm curious if we have any PREs watching here today. So a couple of things that I find really helpful if your horse wants to jig. The first thing is to focus on the rhythm of the walk and keep the walk just a little bit slower in the rhythm. So for Mercurio, yes, we want activity in the walk, but if I keep the rhythm of the walk a little slower like this, then it helps him to stay relaxed and not want to jig. The way that I keep the walk rhythm a little slower is that I actually keep my core a little bit more still. So technically, yes, your seat is following the rhythm of the walk, but if I go too like loosey-goosey on him, or if I get too fast with my seat, like if I start kind of doing too much with him, then his walk gets tension in it, right? You could see how he started like swishing his tail and he didn't really like that. So just sit a little quieter and more stable in your seat. And then the next thing that I think really helps if your horse likes to jig is get their neck down, because that's one of the biggest things. During our office hours, we had a student submit a video and she was having a really hard time keeping her horse walking in the test, but her horse's head was straight up in the air. So one thing I do a lot with Mercurio is I walk serpentines and I really have him on a bending line with his neck down. So you can make your serpentine loops fairly tight and small at the walk, and don't be afraid to take your hand just a little bit wide so that you can feel the corner of your horse's mouth and really see how low you can get your horse to put their head down. Because when your horse's head goes down, it's going to help them to relax, and when their head comes up, it's going to make them tense and it's going to make them want to jig. So keep your walk slower, keep the head down. Now the place where it gets a little tricky, because you're like, yeah, okay, Amelia, that's great, but you're in your test, right? And you have to start taking up the reins for your medium walk. So what I do is when you take up the reins for the medium walk, push your horse sideways. So stay a little off the rail and leg yield your horse over. Maintain that slow walk rhythm by keeping your core tight, but your butt soft. So you need to stay relaxed in your seat, but keep your core just a little bit tighter. So let me show you again. Let's pretend I'm in a test and I'm gonna do free walk to P, and then at P I need to pick up medium walk from P to F. So since I know that he has a tendency to jig, what I'm gonna do is as I start taking up my reins, I'm gonna keep him bending right, and I'm gonna leg yield him to the left. So see how I'm leg yielding him to the left? And I'm keeping him in just a little bit of shoulder fore positioning so that I can put my inside leg on. So doing some leg yields with your horse at the walk is really helpful on a horse that likes to jig, because it helps your horse to understand that you need to be able to put your leg on. So I need to be able to put my leg on and have him respond not by jigging, but by moving sideways. And oftentimes horses that jig, the jigging is an evasion. So with Mercurio, he jigs because he gets hot and anxious and he doesn't want to keep the weight on his hind legs. So what I do a lot of times if he starts jigging is I just push him sideways until he goes back to the walk. And the more that he wants to jig, guess what? The more he's got to go sideways like this. So I'm really just like, you've got to go sideways, you've got to go sideways. Good boy. And then if I let him go straight and he jigs again, he's actually being very good for this video, then I push him sideways again. So inside leg, outside rein. And the more your horse wants to jig, the more you push them sideways. Because there's going to be a point, if you really push your horse sideways, that they can't jig anymore. Good boy. Good boy. So I hope that this gives you some tips to help if your horse likes to jig. And again, remember that it's about practicing. So what I do a lot with Mercurio is let the reins out, take up the reins, let the reins out, take up the reins, focus on controlling the tempo of the walk so that when I take up the reins, I think really slow, that I could almost make him halt. This is what we call the counted walk, where he's just walking super, super slow. And then if I close my leg a little bit more forward, good boy, good boy, boy. But it's definitely something that you need to work on. And the more that you practice it and the more that you can move your horse sideways in the walk, the easier it's going to be to keep them from jigging. So I hope this has given you some tips. Check out in the description box, I have a bunch of free PDFs. There's one on patterns and figures, there's one on the canter. So there's a lot of great information to help you. And don't forget to like and subscribe. I make a new video every single Wednesday, and we'd love to have you join our community.